Yeah, the question was if you can please explain the business documents and project documents.
Your question's about business case or benefits management plan?
Yeah, the difference between the business documents and the project documents.
Well, those business documents were things that may have even been before the project was started. And if you recall back in our first class, we talked about those a little bit, where even project managers are sometimes called in before the project starts to help put together the business case. They're familiar with what's going on.
Okay.
Benefits management plan ties into how is this project going to help the company or the organization.
Okay.
And so we may be looking at different ways that will enhance what we're doing or have value for the company or organization. So those were probably things created very early on, maybe even before the project got started.
Okay.
Communication and stakeholder plans are probably very draft stages, but the early stages for what we're going to use there. Enterprise environmental factors, I think, what kind of organization we're in can a lot of times guide or direct how we put together our stakeholder management, making sure we identify all the people needed. If we're going to need government involvement, or if there will be government involvement, we probably need to know what stakeholders there are going to be involved. Organizational process assets, we probably already have stakeholder register, which may be 85, 90% the same as from past projects. We'll probably be just taking that register and updating it for the current project. And we've got templates that may help us, and we probably have lessons learned from past projects that will help identify key people. So our experts here, I think, would be us and our team, maybe even sponsor and senior management helping us identify people that are going to be involved with this. We may do different things like questionnaires or surveys, doing some brainstorming, doing some analysis. We'll get into some different kinds of analysis and some examples, a couple slides, but we don't want to know everyone that's going to be involved or impacted by what we're doing. Data representation, this is one of the things we're going to be doing, is probably set up a grid comparing power and influence, or power and impact or influence. If we had a three-dimensional model, that'd be pretty cool, because we do power, influence, and impact all in one kind of thing, which actually nowadays 3D dimensional model is probably something you could do in the computer. Salience model is the idea that we're going to be we're most interested in people that have a lot of power and influence. We talk about different directions of influence: upward, downward, outward, sideward. Sideward was a term I hadn't seen before. Usually we talked about horizontal influence. I guess that's where they thought would help us understand this. Of course, we'll probably have meetings to pull together a lot of this information. Here's an example of power and influence grid. So we can see that, well, in my slide, the red ones, the sponsor and engineering manager, those might be people that have a lot of power and influence. So we're going to have to be careful with those folks and manage them real carefully and closely. CFO, senior engineer, a lot of power, but maybe they're not directly involved. We still need to keep them in sync. A lot of influence, well, our team and maybe engineering users. So we're going to need to keep those folks up to date with what's going on. And then other stakeholders, pretty much everyone else. Is it, somebody needs a monthly newsletter, maybe not even that kind of thing. We had stockholders in our company. Maybe they only need like the quarterly report that comes out talking about finances and the overall health of the business. The outputs of this would be our stakeholder register, that list of stakeholders, key people involved. Want to identify by name, role, all the people that will be involved, what their expectations are, what kind of influence or power they might have. And that could change over time too. So probably want to have some kind of time ideas in there too. Test manager that's going to start working on our project 6 months from now may not be real interested up front in what we're doing, but he or she will definitely be interested when we get who's actually doing the testing. Probably want to classify our stakeholders in different ways. So internal, external, the idea of impact, influence, power, or interest, that upward, downward, sideward, outward kind of thing. There's another way of saying internal, external, I think, and then up and down. What kind of people are they to start with? Are they supporting what we're doing, not aware of what we're doing, neutral, or are they really against what we're doing? Or just putting a list of people together. I don't think we'd have very many change requests at this point. The outputs from this will be some updates going into these other draft plans, I guess we'd say, requirements, communication, risk, and stakeholder plan. Maybe some additions into our assumption log, issue log, register. 13.2 then is going to be planned stakeholder engagement. So the key benefit here is really putting together good plans on how we're going to work with and deal with the various stakeholders. So we've already put together that stakeholder list just a minute ago, or maybe more than a minute ago. We want to figure out good strategies for dealing with the various stakeholders. So we need to find out what their interest is, how much they're going to be involved. And we can't spend all our time with everybody, so we want to really key on those key people that we're going to need to work with. So out of this will come our stakeholder engagement plan. Go to this one. For the charter, the draft versions of the project management plan, specifically I mentioned resource, communications, and risk, and these other plans that will feed into it. And what we've got put together, well, now we've got the stakeholder register among our documents, because we already started putting that together. Risk register, early versions of the schedule, the charter would probably have some of those assumptions things that we built in or started identifying. Agreements here is any ongoing service level agreement or kinds of things that we have ongoing with our users or customers. Enterprise environmental factors, let's number of the things here.
Question, please. You said project charter includes some assumptions? I thought those are coming from mostly lesson learned. So if it's still assumption at that point?
Yeah, if we pull things from past projects, yeah, there'd be assumptions. Could be from our charter that's being put together pretty much in the initiation group. We might have had some assumptions in there about whether we're going to get new business, whether it's going to satisfy our customers. There may be various things that we had in the assumptions area.
Oh, I see.
On the organizational side, what kind of culture do we have? Political climate, I think, is talking about internally in the company, but we could be impacted too by what's going on with the government outside too. What policies does our HR or personal administration department have? Of our stakeholders, especially key ones, what's their appetite for risks? They want to do a bunch of new and wild things, or they want to keep very conservative and just do small but improving increments to what we're currently doing? What kind of channels for communication do we have within our group? And local trends and practices, locations, if we're all in one state, one city, it's going to be a lot different than if we're scattered around many states or around the world.
Yeah, what is the term for that again, please? I know the co-location is in one place. What is the term for the people all over the place?
What's the word for all over the place?
Yeah.
I would say scattered or multiple locations.
Is scattered a project management word? I thought they had. I was thinking yesterday. I couldn't remember what it is.
Co-location, the idea of co-location means we're all like in one room or one
Yeah,
facility.
yeah, but I thought they have a similar word for people that are in different parts of the world.
See, what term did we use? I think it was more like just, I don't remember a specific term. I'm
Yeah.
blanking out on that. Let me think about that. Maybe there is, I think, or you could just say multiple locations or multiple facilities that are in various,
Off-site.
well, it could be still part of the company though, so it might not be necessarily offsite. Offsite from us, where we are here, say we have our company office in Oak Brook.
Yeah, that's good. I thought they have a plan for
We
everybody.
got a branch that's in Buffalo Grove.
Yeah,
I think it might just be more talking about multiple locations and maybe facilities that are in various cities, perhaps countries. It's a global organization.
so multiple locations should be the right word then?
I think you could say, you know,
Okay,
that's what we want to understand here as we're putting together our stakeholder engagement plan.
okay,
Especially if we're talking about not just, this I think is talking more about the company, but we could, you know, it'll be broadened out too if we're talking about end users or customers that might be in many different places too.
yeah,
On the organizational process asset side, we probably have policies, procedures in place, maybe ways that we use social media to broadcast what's going on. Our communication requirement within the company. And the same stuff that we see in a lot of these, you know, guidelines for how to handle all this information. And lessons learned from our past projects can help us a lot of times too. And the tools we've used in the past to engage with our stakeholders. I mentioned, it doesn't say it here in the plan exactly, but actually did back here, did mention stakeholder register. We've already updated that some from perhaps our old one for past projects. So planning the plan. How do we get to know our stakeholders? You know, we want to keep in mind what they're interested in, what may be, where this project may be a great thing for them or not so great. But really it's talking here about developing that relationship with the stakeholders. Best if we can have open communication, be pretty transparent with them, try to build a trust with our people, and hopefully that'll bring about some respect as well. Especially the key stakeholders, we want to try to get a good commitment from them. Tools and techniques, well, here's our experts again, but they may have some specific knowledge about the inside the organization, the power and politics kinds of things that go on, and perhaps outside with our clients or customers. We may use different tools to do this kind of work, and actually that those grids like the power, influence, interest kind of grids may help us with that. Probably want to figure out how we're going to communicate with these people. So it does mention, you know, we may have some various strategies for dealing with different groups of people. And a lot of times we can build on what we've done with those past projects or similar ones. Data gathering, talk about looking at our assumptions and constraints, maybe analyzing those a little bit more. And if need be, digging into some root cause problems. Decision making. Once we get this all put together, we want to really kind of rate and rank the various stakeholders. The key ones, we're going to be interested in making sure we're meeting with them however often we need to, you know, daily, weekly. The ones that may need that quarterly newsletter, you know, figure out how, you know, how we'll handle those folks too. And we'll have meetings to plan this out and go through this. Data representation, they mentioned mind mapping again. I think I sent you some examples of that, but also these are the 5 categories that we'll probably try to place our people in initially and then change as things change over time. Unaware and neutral to me are kind of similar, but unaware, you know, they don't even have a clue as to what we're doing in this project. Neutral, they have some idea what we're trying to do, but they're not for or against us. Resistance, well, they're against us. Supportive is where we'd like to try to bring most of our key stakeholders. Leading, the way PMI thinks, it's like you don't want to have 20 chiefs or 20 cooks, probably just a couple key lead people. When we're looking at how we're going to try to develop our strategy for different people, we'd probably try to move them towards supportive, not necessarily looking at creating, 20 leaders. Here's a chart out of PMBOK, which kind of shows, I wish they'd expanded a little bit more, but C would be the current level of engagement, and D would be our desired level. And C, we're trying to move everyone to be supportive here. I wish they had resisted in there. They don't. But with resistant, even if we got them to be neutral, not fighting us all the time, well, that might be better than fighting with them all the time. We could make them supportive even better. The outputs of this will be our stakeholder engagement plan. Various levels of engagement.
Question, please. Question. So, question for resistant, you say resistant is not necessarily against the project, but they just don't want to change. Is that what it is?
Oh, you mean with this?
No, the resistant, the one before that. Yeah, see number 2. Unaware, it just doesn't know. But the resistant one knows what is going on, but they just don't want to do it.
They may not want to do it. They may be opposed to it. If it's going to change something in their division or department. There may be various reasons they might be against it.
Are they
Could be the
including like specific resistance or just like inertia? People in general, generalization, don't like change. They like things constant and the same and are resistant to change. But that's kind of a general, not specific.
Yeah,
Are they including that general human resistance to change in there? Or they are against the project.
They might be some of that in there too, but maybe the CFO doesn't think we should be spending money on this project. Well, that'd be pretty specific.
You have a minute? Sit down the person in a whole internet is developing how much to.
Someone's here from Comcast, so he went to talk to him about that.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thanks. Comcast man is here again. A different one.
Hopefully he will come. Hopefully he will come.
Explain what was going on, and he's going to go. Maybe he's going to go have lunch or something. But he'll come back in a half hour, and when we're done.
Okay, good.
Yeah, resistant. I think because we want to really identify this by groups or by people. So for all these categories, I think you're right. The people that just don't want anything to change, in general, we probably tag them under the resistant group, even though they're,
They don't care about the project one way or the other, they
Yeah.
just don't like.
they just don't like change.
Yeah.
So our output from this will be our engagement plan, how we're going to deal with various stakeholders, and timing and frame of dealing with different people, making sure we're getting good information out to them when they need it, and how we're going to update that plan as we're moving along. And this is plan to plan, but we might have had some updates even at this point of adding or removing some stakeholders from the register. 13.3 then is going to be managed stakeholder engagement. So we're in execution now. So it's a matter of communicating, working with the stakeholders to meet their needs, address any issues they've got, and really try to keep them involved. know this has been emphasized a little bit more, I think, in the current version of PMP, really working closely with our, well, key people especially. The slide used to say it's the project manager's job, but I think it's really the whole team's job to work with the different people we're going to be involved with. Yeah, there's that kind of time frame thing too. There may be some people up front that we need to work with closely later on, maybe like our test teams later, or other teams that aren't involved right at the front. Want to deal with their expectations, communicate, negotiate with them when there's things that they vary on, deal with their concerns, try to do it as quickly and on time as possible. Key benefit of this for us is hopefully going to increase support from the key people, minimize the resistance, and make sure we're meeting their needs and keeping them involved and active. If we do that, ultimately that could end up increasing our probability for success in this project. So from the big plan, now we do have the plan put together. So communications, risk, stakeholder, and change management plans will be put together. Our change log, issue log, and the risk and lessons learned register, or stakeholder register, will be more complete now. Enterprise environmental factors, OPAs, is going to be very similar to what we saw in the plan engagement inputs. Tools and techniques, very similar to what we saw in plan stakeholder management or engagement. Say management once in a while because that's the term that we used to have in there. Communication skills, we're going to have formal, informal communications or conversations with the people involved, deal with issues. Of course, we'll probably have meetings doing this, and progress reporting, I think, might be tied into our normal status meetings anyway. Maybe doing some surveys to work with the different people.
Can you, I look like I'm missing something there. I'm missing a whole page. Can we go back so that I can get myself back with it here now? Okay, see with that. Okay, your cursor is on top of the number, so I cannot see the number. Your arrow is blocking the number.
Top of the slide is 13.3, manage stakeholder engagement inputs.
Yeah, but your number, see, you're 170 something here.
It's slide 374 in my stuff. There might be one slide off, I think. Hopefully not two slides.
Three. Okay, 374, 374. Okay, so I'm there now. Okay, if we could go to the next slide, please, to see. See, I don't have that one.
Really? What do you have? Let's see. I've got a couple for tools and techniques here.
Or maybe there's something that I need to get rid of. See, I don't have 3.3. See, my 3.3 is manage stakeholder engagement, tools and technique though, but the way it's written is completely different.
I think I might have revised or simplified this one to make it a little more sense.
Can I just copy it so that I make sure? Because I think I could just copy survey then ground. See, I don't have all these ground rules.
I can send you slide 374 and 75 too, if that'll help, or 75 and 76. 76, yeah. Ground rules was actually defined way back a couple places, but I think in resource management it was spelled out a little bit more clearly what we're expecting from the team, what kinds of things we want them to agree to work on. Conflicts between them, work on among themselves, what kind of communications they're going to have, various things like that. And as we're doing this, probably that's more specific to our project team. Probably have meetings too to work through, how we doing. what we need to look at changing. Well, that'll tie in a little bit with our monitoring controls process too.
Okay, we could go to the next page if you're ready.
Next one has to do with interpersonal and team skills. And this is a little bit longer list than we've sometimes seen under these things, but we're resolving conflict, dealing with conflict, being aware of cultural differences, negotiating agreements, and this is talking about with people involved. Observation and conversations may come into play.
Yeah. Okay, like on the overcoming resistance, I missing all those information that came after that. And I don't have the strategy here too. So there's a big change. So I just trust.
Okay, so I'll send you these two slides then.
Okay.
Active listening. I think I mentioned before, I might have mentioned communications, that I learned about this kind of thing in the 70s in listening skills workshops and empathy labs. Really, that's the idea of listening to a person or a group of people until they're done speaking, which I don't always practice what I preach on this, but and noticing, really attuning with people, basically. What kind of body language do we notice? What kind of feelings are they expressing or not expressing? And being able to really reflect back to them what we're sensing. Because a lot of times that can help in building that relationship and also overcoming any kind of problems that they might have, either imagined or real. And then we want to strategize too on better ways a lot of times to work with the various stakeholders, and as we learn more, adjust our plans. Output to this, perhaps some new change requests. I think when we're talking about stakeholder engagement, I think a lot of it might be involved with we have new people involved, people leaving, new groups we didn't identify that we needed to work with, and updates to our stakeholder and communication plans. Perhaps new updates going into our change log, issue log, and lessons learned in stakeholder registers. 13.4 then is going to be monitor stakeholder engagement. That is monitoring our relationships with the stakeholders and perhaps adjusting or tailoring our strategies to meet what they need. Key benefit really is to make sure we're keeping the people that we need to engaged as we're moving through the project. Also involves, looking at that register and adjusting it as we need to, adding or taking away stakeholders, or changing their relationship with us. If they were resistant before, but now they're supporting us, okay, treat them that way. So resource management plan, risk management plan, stakeholder engagement plan fitting into this. A lot of the same kinds of things. We've built out our issues, lessons learned register, risk and stakeholder registers, project communications. We're monitoring control now, so now we got work performance data coming in too, so we can look at that and figure out what that means to us. Enterprise environmental factors, OPAs, are pretty much the same as we had in that planned stakeholder engagement, talking about what kind of environment we're in, what historical information we have that'll help us, those kinds of things. Tools and techniques, data analysis, maybe looking at alternative ways of dealing. Now here we're talking about people part of it, so what are different ways we could deal with these groups of people or key people? Root cause, I think, is kind of getting back in, if that CFO is against this project, let's figure out why, or maybe talk to that person, get some more details, figure out where some things got sidetracked. And stakeholder analysis, I think, is getting at the idea, if we had people that were neutral but are supporting us now, well, let's treat them like supporters then and not neutral. Or if there were resistors and now they're neutral, treat them differently too. Decision making, you mentioned multi-criteria analysis, maybe weigh different options on working with different people. We might use among our team voting to figure out what the best responses might be for different groups. And that stakeholder engagement assessment matrix that we had a sample of earlier, probably update that. Make sure it makes sense. Communication skills, well, likely making presentations, but we want to get feedback from those stakeholders too, make sure we're meeting the needs, addressing any issues or problems that come up. Interpersonal team skills, kind of tying to that active listening, being aware of cultural differences, taking on a good leadership role, working with these people. Networking, kind of interesting. I know we're doing that a lot of times when we're looking for that next job. And political work, it's talking more internally in the company, but if we're beyond the company with our customers, could go outside of that too. Outputs of this section will be updates to the work performance information, perhaps new change requests. Kind of see that popping up a lot. Updates to our plans, resource communications and stakeholder plans. New additions going into our issues, lessons learned register, and the risk and stakeholder registers for updates to them.
Well done.
That's stakeholder management.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. It's a little more straightforward.
It seems like everything is very important, but these last ones are just, I mean, the other one is planning, but this last two is really where you have a lot of challenges because you're dealing with people.
Yeah, we're dealing with people, and it's pretty important. That's why I think understanding if they're supporting, neutral, or fighting us, it's going to be important to figure out the best ways to deal with the different groups.
Ready to bite. Oh my goodness.
Hopefully, most of the time we got people that are either supporting or neutral. We got a bunch of resistors. That can be a problem.
Yeah, even if you're just one.
I know that was a problem for us when Motorola tended to reorganize about every year or a year and a half. And a lot of times when we reorganized, that would kind of jumble some good things that were, some of our best practices. And there was one time when our PMO was kind of put under another PMO that was more interested in headcount and not as much interested in how you're actually doing.
Oh my goodness.
So they weren't looking at plan versus actions. They wanted to get a good plan, but then they didn't actually compare that to what was actually produced or how many hours were actually worked and that kind of thing. And it actually kind of took down some good reporting tools we had put together, pulling information out of various tools and putting together what we called enterprise project management system, I think it was called. It's supposed to be across the whole corporation, but I think only certain divisions actually embraced it. And we went through that reorganization, we discovered that other group didn't embrace it. They also didn't care about costing our projects. They were interested in costing just headcount. We got 30 people on this or 300 people on this. Okay, their salary rates and all that, we'll calculate the cost that way. Well, if you want to talk about a program, that might be fine. But if you want to talk about individual projects and the cost of the individual projects, that didn't give us too much. One of the good things when our division was sold to Nokia Siemens, they were more interested in cost. And so for them, costing was a lot more important than schedules. So they were a little weaker on schedules, but strong on costing. But those changes, especially as we kept reorganizing or getting spun off, were pretty challenging a lot of times. I might have mentioned that my boss's boss was one of our problems when we did the last reorganization, because he didn't really understand very well the kinds of things we were doing. And so when he had to present it to the reorganized PMO, I think he kind of fell on his face. And after that, we were all dispersed and broken down into either working in functional teams. Later, we ended up coming back into a PMO, but that was much later. And it was kind of sad because the reporting capabilities and everything were kind of, the good ones we had were set aside. It was almost 2 years before we had not even good reports, but similar reports. from what was left of the reporting team after everyone was diversed. Yeah, we were dispersed, yeah. Split up and put in other teams. Well, we've got not a lot of time left.
Yeah, we have,
We could start on the quiz, or I could give you the quiz and that would be part of your homework.
I kind of had a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you require resources in 9.3, which is that executing,
Mhm.
you gotta do the planning first, but you don't get your team till after you're done planning then. So how does the team help you with planning if you don't get them till after you're done planning?
Acquire resources, talking about that whole larger group of people that are gonna work on the project, equipment that we might need for the project, supplies, everything else. So acquire resources is a bigger thing. In the planning stage, we probably have key planning leads already, maybe even our project team put together.
Well, where do you acquire your team?
In 9.3,
Then you don't have them yet.
you don't have your
when you're
whole
planning.
team. I mean, if you need 300 people to do software development,
Right.
up front, you may have your planning team. And typically you do. I mean, it's not like you don't have anybody, and it's not like we're soloing doing planning. We probably have the key leads, either functional leads or tech leads that can help us.
I was understanding that because you had to go through the process of acquiring your team to do the planning.
That would be up front. That's not talking about, well, I think what they're thinking about acquire resources is the team that's gonna do the work.
Right.
We may have 10 people helping plan this project, but we may need 50 people to actually do the work. So
But getting the 10 people to plan the project is not up there? Or it's included? in
it's
the
sort of in there, I guess you'd say. I mean, whatever people are gonna help us plan resources and finance and, I mean, you know, that group of people, we may already have our project team put together.
Mhm.
So, yeah, they're not, when it talks about acquiring resources later, it's talking about more like the worker bees, who's gonna actually do the work. Up front, yeah, we probably have our planning team. It doesn't specifically say, got all these people up front, but. And it's funny, because one of my students a while back was saying, this is wrong, we don't acquire them in execution. I know right up front at the beginning of the project who I want to have on my team. Well, that's probably true in a lot of cases. So, yeah, it's.
Sorry.
I don't call it.
Scam Likely. Scam Likely is calling me. I get a lot of calls from Scam
Hi, Scam, how are you? Yeah, it's not explicit, I guess it's implicit, that up front, when we're doing our planning up front, we probably have key planning people involved. Like in my world, we have the scheduling team, the costing team, quality. I mean, quality was out there, we had a QC group, but they were often involved in helping put the planning stuff together.
Well, I thought they said to create the work breakdown structures, you have people that are actually gonna do it, create that. But you don't have them.
Perhaps, or we might have key leads from those groups that are familiar with the work. Yeah, that's true. It sounds a little disconnected. I think the timeline on some of that stuff is
Fuzzy logic.
fuzzy, I guess. Yeah, that's probably a good way to say it. I mean, and I know from what they had in the past was resource management used to have 3 processes in execution: acquire the team, develop the team, and manage the team. They changed that first one from acquire the team to acquire all resources, to include the equipment, materials, and other stuff we're going to need.
Mhm.
That being said, yeah, we're not starting out with 0 people until we get to execution. We got quite a few people usually involved before then. Yeah, fuzzy might be a good way to say that. We got our planning people up front. Maybe we should say that somewhere up front. Acquire a planning team.
I thought that when during the planning, you actually identify all those people in your planning
We
stage.
identified a lot of them, and actually, since we put the stakeholder register together in initiating, we probably identified even there a lot of the people we're going to need to do the work. in addition to planning people. So yeah, we might have had something of a list of the people we needed up front. Although I know in my world, a lot of times that upfront planning might say we need 20 developers, and we might use a placeholder, we call it, a planning resource that was equal to 20 people. And then as we actually got into developing it out more, we, take away the 20 and put in the 20 names of the people that were going to work on it. But to your point though earlier, bottom-up estimating, well, if we don't have those 20 people in place, how can they do bottom-up estimating?
Yeah.
Little quirky there, I guess.
Yeah, use the team to identify the stakeholders, so you do 2 processes before you got the team. It's like, okay, you're getting me confused.
That's right. Having all that stuff in execution and not in something earlier has been intention, like I say. The one student was so ardent about the fact, I know what people I want up front. I don't have to wait until I'm in execution to pull those people in. Probably true. So it's not.
I mean, yeah, but basically that's what we do, because there's probably stuff behind the scenes that I didn't see, but we,
And I know in my world too. I mean,
teams would get picked, we'd meet in a room, all right, and then we would develop the project, kind of get told what the project charter was and maybe tweak it a little bit.
Yeah.
And identify stakeholders, we'd have the team and then we'd start.
Yeah, and in my world, we probably had that key group together, and actually as we went along, I mean, we always had software development teams come in from our 4 or 5 different divisions, and pretty much they knew who was going to be involved and who was going to be freed up. They had resource managers in those sections too that might help. If they had 20 people still tied up on 5 other projects, we wanted to start this new one. Probably go, hey, time out here, you're not going to get those people for a while or until we could fit them in.
Or could it be that the managers that was there or the upper management that was there during the planning already know, okay, I have this number of people in my group that can support that, so they put in those numbers. And then once the planning is complete, then those people, within that time, they're communicating with those people. You're going to be, be involved with this project. I think that's how it's done in my environment. So you already know those people are there. And if they're not there, they already advertise on how to acquire them. And once it's approved, then those people just move in and get it done.
Yeah, it's probably not like a black and white cutoff point where, and that's why, even we talked about process groups up front, initiating could be overlapped with planning could be overlapped with execution. And I think this resource side of it, or the people side of it, does make sense that we'd probably be identifying a lot of those people from planning. Otherwise, we're going to have them do bottom-up estimating for how much time it's going to take to do the work. Well, we're close to being out of time, so I'm going to suggest that the stakeholder management quiz be take home. It's only got 17 questions in it too, so it's going to be a little briefer. And we'll cover that at the beginning of next class. Along with, I'd like to cover at the beginning of next class, or early in the next class, the cost and schedule worksheet.
Oh yeah, that one.
So for Tuesday, stakeholder management quiz and cost and schedule worksheet. That other more detailed fill in the definition one, you can work on as you wish, but I'm going to give you a handout with the names and definitions in there. So it's supposed to be a class project. Actually, the old one only had 85 questions.
Okay.
Got a little more in this one because they added in some for Agile and some of the newer concepts. And here's this for you.
Thank you.
Patricia, are you willing to come down next Tuesday, or do you want to still work remotely next Tuesday?
I have an interview at 3 o'clock today. I had I had so many interviews. That's my problem is I don't know my schedule because they throw things at me when they want to. Right now the Tuesday is open because I am scheduled for the class, but then I don't know what will happen after class. Like I said today, I actually have to start preparing for my interview for 3. So and when it's Skype, I really have to plan it. And what I'm looking for is not what I have done before. So I really have to read and prepare. So that's the problem. But right now it looks like it's very open.
Okay. Well, if you can come, what we'll plan is I'll buy lunch for all 3 of us. Actually, Paul will buy lunch for all 3 of us. And we'll blend that into our review session. If you can't, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We could still have lunch here for the 2 of us.
Yeah.
Usually what we end up doing is ordering out to somebody that will deliver.
Okay.
And it could be anything from pizza to sandwiches to whatever, we decide we want.
Mm-hmm.
But a few places, it's funny, all 3 locations have ended up getting rosatis pretty often. And
so Stephanie, you know what you're going to eat.
Actually, Rosati's up in Gurnee. It's not just the Rosati's, it's also the Chicago Red Hots. So you got all sorts of sandwiches and salads and pizza and pretty much anything you want. Down here, we actually get Rosati's from, I think, Westmont, which is pretty close, just down the road a little bit.
Okay. So
We'll work on that next time.
Today is Thursday. Oh, that's the problem is we will know. Okay, I should know by, because somebody's supposed to call me early next week.
Yeah.
To follow up. So I should know, hopefully, if you didn't call on Monday, then it means it's not going to happen on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
okay.
I should know.
And if you can just let me know via text or something, that'll help us plan.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you guys and have a good afternoon.
Hey, you too.
The only thing we need is we have 2 homeworks and that's it, right?
2 main homeworks. Stakeholder.
And the stakeholder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the cost and schedule and the stakeholder. If you got time to play with that definition sheet, feel free. I know some people say that it's been very beneficial for them just to go through it and figure out, okay, what is the definition for this? Now you can look it up in the glossary or different ways too.
Okay. Yeah, the one that says schedule and cost exercise, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then today's assignment. I'm ready. My head is full of so much. I will be happy when I settle down with a job. I only had 2 hours sleep last night, so.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I need to figure out a way to stay up at least 3 o'clock too. Yeah.
Sleep for all of us, I think, is an important, good problem, but also a little issue a lot of times too. If we don't get enough sleep, if I don't get enough, it's hard.
And actually, they say it's not good for people when they don't sleep.
Right.
For me, I have been doing it for a long time. It become part of my life, which is not good because eventually we cut up with the person.
Yeah, I think it will catch up.
Yeah, and I know that, so I shouldn't be doing it, but we see. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks everyone again, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks. You too.
You too. Good afternoon.
Bye now.
Okay.